You asked me to figure out where this video was recorded, so I did. Hi, I'm Jose Monkey, and I find people who ask to be found. Guys, this one made me a little bit crazy because I had a solid approach to finding it, but I made a stupid mistake that cost me a bunch of time. So what can we see? It's a brief video. Check it out. Okay, so there are not a lot of clues here. We see this pretty nondescript building here, and we see this gray wall next that has what appears to be writing on it. It wasn't even obvious to me at first that it was actually writing, but it was mostly unreadable. After that, we can see this blurry sign across the street in this building, a stop sign, some trees, nothing really helpful. But as the video ends, we get a glimpse of the side mirror on the car, which shows us a few things in the reflection. I flipped the video to get a better view of what was in the mirror. The mirror itself was a little bit dirty. I'm not trying to throw shade here. I'm sure my mirrors are dirty too. So it was hard to make out the details. The first store appeared to be a paint store. I say that because I saw what looked like the word paint at the bottom, and the window of the store had a graphic which looked like it had a paintbrush. I couldn't see the entire name of the store, but it looked like it ended in the letters TTER. The sign for the store next to it was a little bit difficult to read, but I thought I was seeing the letters INFU at the beginning of a word, so something like infuse or infusion. And then the second line of text was pretty much unreadable, but it looked like it was two words separated maybe by a symbol, like an ampersand. I figured it was infuse or infusion, something and something. But I didn't know what, if it was like bar and grill or something entirely different. I tried to read the words on that gray wall, but it was much too blurry, and the angle was so severe that the letters were really kind of distorted. I actually tried taking this image and skewing it to stretch it out a bit to see if it made it easier to read. And that did help me to determine that at the beginning we had what were arrows pointing into the parking lot, but other than that, I couldn't really make much out. I thought maybe that this word here said paint, which would be a reference to the paint store, but that didn't really help me. Okay, so this seemed like a really good candidate for a data mining approach against the OpenStreetMap database. The reason I say that is because that would allow me to do searches on partial words using regular expressions. Basically, what that means is I could search for words that started with letters like INFU, like we see on the one sign, or that ended with particular letters like the TTER that we see on the other sign. Okay, but where should I search? This looked very southwest to me. I was thinking like Arizona at first, but I figured it could also be New Mexico or maybe Southern California. So I figured I'd have to cast a pretty wide net and hope that there weren't too many results. So I got to work writing the data mining queries that I needed. Cue hacking sequence. I wrote the queries that I needed to look for places that matched the partial names that I mentioned. Then I filtered those results to find only the stores that were close to each other. I figured within 25 meters. But I wasn't coming up with very many results at all, and the ones that I got just weren't right. I thought that maybe I was misreading that TTER part on the sign, so I tried a few other variations, LTER, TLER, LLER, but nothing was working. So I tried throwing out the second store altogether and just searching for any store that had paint in the name. And again, I got results, but nothing that looked right. At that point, I was pretty frustrated. I figured maybe OpenStreetMap just didn't have these places in their database. And if that were the case, this approach was never going to work. I decided I was going to need more information and probably a different approach. But there wasn't any more information. Now guys, I don't like looking at people's profiles to find locations. And honestly, it's because usually it makes it very, very easy. So many people just put their location right in their bio. Anyway, I peeked at this person's profile, and thankfully, it didn't give away the location right away. And there aren't too many videos on the account, but I saw one right away that looked like it might be helpful. It's very brief, but we see two things here. The first is a green license plate that I was pretty sure was a New Mexico plate. And the second is this distinctive, if somewhat plain, building. I figured if I could find this spot, then maybe the other video was somewhere near there. And guys, I just took a shot and started looking at Albuquerque, because Albuquerque is the biggest city in New Mexico, and like a quarter of the population lives there. And I know it might sound crazy, but I just brought up the 3D view of Albuquerque and just started looking around for this building. And I looked around for about a half hour, but I actually found it. It's a good thing that it was actually in Albuquerque, or I would have been in trouble. Anyway, once I knew the location of that video, I figured that the other video was probably recorded not too far away from there. So I started looking for paint stores in and around Albuquerque. And there are more of them than you might think. But even with a long list, I still wasn't finding what I was looking for. I struggled with that for a while and decided to instead try to search for the other store. So I tried to Google for businesses named Infuse near Albuquerque. And I got a result for some place called Infused Yoga and Fitness. That sounded pretty promising because I knew I was looking for a store that had the name Infuse or something like that, followed by something and something, yoga and fitness. So I went to check it out. And thank God that was finally it. You were here, in the parking lot near Infused Yoga and Fitness, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Google Street View confirmed the view of those stores that we saw reflected in your mirror. The paint store was called Chatter Paint. I could also see that gray wall with the writing on it, and the buildings that we could see across the street. You were parked right here in the parking spot on the end. Okay, so why did the data mining fail? Well, guys, I hate to say it, but it was user error. Hey. When I went back and looked at my queries, I realized that there was an error that was unintentionally omitting some of the results from the result set. And even though that infused yoga place is not in the OpenStreetMap database, Chatter Paint is. And when I fixed my error and reran the query to look for any place that had a name that ended in TTER and also had the word paint in the name, I only got one location in all of the southwestern United States. And it was the right place. Man, I really wish I hadn't messed that up. Sorry. Don't sweat it. This was a tough one, but it was pretty satisfying once I found it. Guys, check out the map of all the places I've found so far. While you're on my site, maybe go check out my store if you want to pick up a t-shirt or a mug or something. And if anybody else wants me to find them, record a video where you say, "Find me, Jose Monkey," or something like that on camera, or hold up a sign that says something similar. And don't forget to tag me in a comment on that video.